In 2025, Google earned $400 billion in revenue. In 2025, the United States government ruled they built that empire illegally. These two facts can both be true at the same time. 5 billion searches every single day. Right now, someone in Tokyo just Googled their symptoms. A student in Lagos just searched for a scholarship. An entrepreneur in Calgary just looked up how to start a business. Every one of those searches flows through one company. One. And for 27 years, nobody questioned it. Google was the internet. The internet was Google. Until August 5th, 2024. August 5th, 2024. US District Court, Washington, D.C. A federal judge looked at $20 billion in secret annual payments, a decade of locked deals, and a monopoly built in plain sight, and said 4 words that shook Silicon Valley to its core. Google is a monopolist. But here's what the news didn't tell you. The ruling was just the beginning. Because while the world was arguing about whether Google was a monopoly, something far more dangerous was already happening beneath the surface. The product they built their entire empire on. Their $300 billion cash cow. The reason you can find anything on Earth in 0.3 seconds is being killed by Google themselves. But that's not even the most shocking part of this story. Because buried underneath the lawsuits, the AI race, and the falling market share, there are secrets. Decisions made in conference rooms that never made the headlines. Cover-ups that cost hundreds of millions. A secret project that Google's own employees called a betrayal. And a generation of users who have quietly, permanently stopped Googling. This is the story of the most powerful company in the history of the internet. How they built it, what they broke, the secrets they buried, the mistakes they cannot undo. And the question no one can answer, can the god of the internet survive what's coming next? If you want to understand how the world's most powerful companies actually operate, not the PR version, not the press release, the real mechanics underneath, this channel exists for you. Every video on Strategy Lens is a forensic case study. The details that get buried, the decisions that don't make the news, the patterns that experts miss. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because what we're about to go through together over the next hour is going to change how you see the internet you use every single day. Now, let's go. Before we talk about what Google did wrong, you need to understand what they did right. Because what Google built is genuinely one of the most elegant business models in human history. And if you don't understand the model, you cannot understand why it is now breaking down from the inside. It starts with a question almost nobody stops to ask. Why is Google free? Nothing that costs $400 billion a year to operate is free. The server farms the size of small cities. The engineers earning $500,000 a year. The undersea cables Google owns crossing the Pacific Ocean. The satellite offices in 50 countries. None of that is free. So why do you pay nothing to use it? Because you are not the customer. You are the product. Here is the exact mechanism. You type a question, Google shows you results. Mostly organic, some paid. Every time you click a paid result, a company pays Google. Maybe 50 cents, maybe $5, maybe $50 for competitive keywords. Google processes an estimated 9 to 13 billion searches every single day. 9 to 13 billion searches a day. Even at 5 cents average revenue per query, that is roughly $450 million per day, every single day. Here is what separates Google from every other advertising business in history. Near zero marginal cost. When Ford builds its 10 millionth car, it costs almost exactly as much as the first. Steel, labor, factory time. When Google answers its 10 billionth search of the day, the cost is almost zero. The servers are already running, the index is already built. Every additional query is nearly pure profit. Google services operating margin 40%, car manufacturing 5 to 8%, retail 3 to 5%. Now here is the part that made this model truly unbeatable. They didn't just build a better product, they bought every single door into the room. Think about how you actually access the internet. You pick up your iPhone, Safari opens, you type a question, that search goes to Google. Why? $20 billion per year, every year, just to be the search engine you start with. That is what Google paid Apple every single year for the right to be the default search engine. $20 billion a year to Apple alone is roughly 15 to 17% of Apple's entire annual operating profit. And it wasn't just Apple. Samsung, Mozilla Firefox, wireless carriers, Android device manufacturers worldwide. Judge Amit Mehta's 2024 ruling called it exactly what it was: a global default agreement network. Exclusionary contracts that no competitor could financially match. Microsoft's Bing couldn't compete. Not because their product was necessarily inferior, but because they could never afford to pay $20 billion a year for a starting position. The race was rigged before the first search was ever typed. Now, Google is building a second machine, growing faster than the first ever did: Google Cloud. $20 billion in a single quarter, 63% year-over-year growth, $460 billion already contracted in backlog. Every company on Earth suddenly needs to run AI models. That requires massive compute power. And Google has spent a decade building custom silicon, TPUs, specifically for AI. While every competitor pays NVIDIA up to $40,000 per GPU chip, Google manufactures their own. They don't pay the toll, they built the toll booth. 2026 Google CapEx guidance, $180 billion. For context, Amazon's entire 2017 annual revenue was $178 billion. This is the scale they are building at. Google isn't betting on being the best AI model. They're betting on becoming the foundation every AI model runs on. The difference between those two bets will determine whether Google survives the next decade. But before we can assess that bet, we need to go somewhere uncomfortable. Because none of this success was built cleanly. In the year 2000, a Google engineer named Paul Buchheit was sitting in a meeting about corporate values. Someone asked, what should this company stand for? Buchheit suggested 3 words. He said later he wanted something that, once you put it in there, would be hard to take out. Don't be evil. It became the most famous corporate motto in tech history. In their IPO filing, on employee t-shirts, the Wi-Fi password on Google's campus shuttles in Mountain View. Sergey Brin said in 2004, evil is what Sergey says is evil. He was joking, sort of. In April 2018, Google quietly edited their corporate code of conduct. Almost every mention of "don't be evil" was removed. No announcement, no press conference, no explanation. One week it was there, the next week, gone. The company that built its entire identity on the promise of not being evil deleted the promise. And here is what was happening at Google in that exact same window of time. The Andy Rubin story. Android, the operating system running on roughly 75% of the world's smartphones. The technology that made the modern mobile internet accessible to billions who couldn't afford an iPhone. Created by Andy Rubin, Google acquired his startup in 2005 for $50 million, one of the greatest acquisitions in tech history. In 2013, a Google employee accused Andy Rubin of sexual misconduct. Google investigated. According to a New York Times investigation published in 2018, Google found the claim credible. So they fired him? No. They asked for his resignation. And then, and this is the detail that triggered the largest employee protest in tech history, they paid him $90 million on the way out. Larry Page public statement. I want to wish Andy all the best with what's next. The New York Times investigation found Google had protected and financially rewarded at least 3 separate senior executives accused of misconduct, paying millions on their way out while telling employees and the public nothing. When the story broke in October 2018, thousands of employees walked off the job simultaneously. Tokyo, Singapore, London, New York, Dublin, Zurich, Seattle. Largest tech employee protest in history. Sign, not OK Google. Google eventually settled a shareholder lawsuit for $310 million. The cover-up cost more than the original misconduct. It always does. In 2016, a secret team inside Google began building a censored search engine for China. The code name was Dragonfly. What would Dragonfly have done? Block searches about democracy, about Tibet, about the Tiananmen Square massacre. Google's engineers built an internal tool called Beacon Tower. named after the structures used to signal an approaching army. They were building a great firewall and calling it Google to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible, still live on their website. Most of Google's own engineers didn't know it existed until August 2018, when The Intercept published leaked documents. Over 1,400 engineers signed a letter demanding transparency. 3 senior employees resigned in protest. Sundar Pichai told Congress in December 2018 that Google had no plans to launch search in China. The project was shelved. But the question remains, was Google willing to help authoritarian governments control what 1.4 billion people could know? Now I want to talk about something that affects every single person watching this, the location tracking scandal. In 2018, the Associated Press published a simple finding. Google was tracking you, even after you turned location tracking off. You went into your settings, you found the toggle, you switched it off, you believed you had privacy. You didn't. Google was still recording where you went, still mapping your movements, still building a location profile. 40 state attorneys general, $391.5 million settlement, largest multi-state privacy settlement in US history. For years, Google has prioritized profit over their users' privacy. Ellen Rosenblum, 2022. For almost a decade, don't be evil. They deleted those words in 2018. By then, the gap between the motto and the behavior had become too wide to pretend any longer. In 2017, 8 Google researchers published a paper, 11 pages, a quiet title, Attention is All You Need. That paper introduced the transformer architecture, the foundational technology behind every single AI system you have ever used. ChatGPT runs on it, Gemini runs on it, every large language model, every AI assistant, every chatbot you've ever typed into traces its architecture directly to that 2017 Google paper. Google didn't just see the AI revolution coming. Google wrote the instructions and then watched someone else follow them. November 30th, 2022, OpenAI launches ChatGPT, 100 million users in 60 days. The fastest consumer product adoption in the history of technology. Faster than Instagram, faster than TikTok. Inside Google's headquarters, Sundar Pichai called an emergency meeting. The memo circulating used language from business school textbooks. Code Red, not a product name. Code Red, the language of a hospital in crisis. Why had Google, the company that wrote the blueprint, not done this first? The thesis: successful companies aren't destroyed by bad products. They're destroyed by their own good ones. Here is the math that froze Google. When someone Googles best car insurance, advertisers might pay $50 every time someone clicks. The cost? Fractions of a cent. The margin is extraordinary. Now replace that with a conversational AI. The AI synthesizes an answer. No links, no ads, no advertiser to bill. And the compute cost to generate that AI response, roughly 10 times higher. Higher cost, zero revenue. Google stared at that math and they froze. No one in the boardroom wanted to kill a $300 billion cash machine. So they waited, and OpenAI didn't. February 2023. Google rushes Bard to market. On launch day, Bard is asked about discoveries made by the James Webb Space Telescope. Bard gives a factually incorrect answer. Live. Incorrect. One AI hallucination, one promotional video. Minus $100 billion in market cap in a single trading day. The worst part wasn't the stock drop. The worst part was what happened when Google deployed AI overviews across all of search in 2024. The AI recommended putting glue on pizza to stop the cheese sliding. It cited an 11-year-old Reddit joke. It told users to eat one small rock per day. It told medical workers that no doctors had ever died by suicide. A statement so harmful, it was deleted within hours. And when asked, CEO Sundar Pichai said, "These are inherent features of large language models that remain unsolved." The CEO, whose entire brand promise is search and you get the right answer, just told the world his product makes things up. For 25 years, Google's value was one thing: trust. The absolute certainty that when you searched, you got the correct answer. Not a reasonable guess. The answer. And they broke it. In a press statement, on purpose. That is not a technology failure. That is a leadership failure. This chapter covers something most business channels won't touch because it is not exciting. There is no villain in a black hat, no courtroom drama. It is slower than that, and it is more dangerous. Here is how the internet worked for 25 years. You search for something, Google shows you 10 blue links to websites. You click one, that website gets your visit, which is a unit of revenue through advertising or subscriptions. That revenue pays the journalist, the writer, the researcher, the doctor who wrote the article you just read. Google needed quality content to be useful. Content creators needed Google's traffic to survive. The whole system fed itself. In May 2024, Google broke that loop. They deployed AI overviews at scale. An AI summary at the top of every result page that answers your question so you never have to click anything. And what followed should make every person who uses the internet deeply uncomfortable. Business Insider, minus 55% organic search traffic over 3 years. HuffPost, minus 50% search referrals. AI overview queries. CTR drops from 15% to 8%, a 47% collapse per search. Google search traffic to publishers fell 33% in the year to November 2025. US decline 38%. Let me translate those numbers into human terms. Every independent news outlet, every food blogger, every health information site, they are losing the economic foundation of their existence. Publishers are in a bind. If you want to opt out of AI overviews, you opt out of Google search entirely. Claudia Yazvinska. There is no choice. Hand over your work to be summarized for free or become invisible. The doom loop. Here is the paradox that should keep every Google executive awake at night. Google built its $400 billion empire on the backs of the publishers it now refuses to credit or pay. All of that content was created by people who got paid by the traffic Google sent them. Now Google is using it to train AI models. They scrape the seed corn and then they ate it. If publishers lose revenue, they produce less content. If there is less quality content, Google's index degrades. If the index degrades, search results get worse. If results get worse, users go elsewhere. If users leave, advertisers follow. Google is in the early innings of a doom loop they themselves created. Sundar Pichai said in mid-2025 that Google is pretty committed to ensuring journalism plays an important role. Meanwhile, US publisher search traffic is down 38% year over year. In business, actions are data, words are noise. There is a website called killedbygoogle.com. It tracks every product, service, and platform that Google has launched and then terminated. The current count over 300. 300 products. Not failed experiments that never launched. Products that users built businesses on. Platforms that developers spent years integrating into their work. Services that people came to rely on as part of their daily lives. All of them. Launched, promoted, trusted, killed. Google Reader, an RSS aggregator used by millions of journalists, researchers, academics, and curious people to track every publication they cared about in real time. Google killed it in 2013. No replacement. 12 years later, people in tech still cite Google Reader's death as the exact moment they stopped trusting Google. Google Stadia, a cloud gaming platform that technically worked. Google spent hundreds of millions building it, marketed it globally, let developers build exclusive games for it. In September 2022, 60 days notice. Users who had purchased games, libraries deleted, hardware bought at retail, instantly worthless. Developers who had built Stadia exclusive titles, their work erased. After Stadia, developers stopped considering Google as a partner. Google Plus, the data burial. Google Plus failed. Routine enough, except during the shutdown. A Wall Street Journal investigation revealed something that Google had known for months. A software bug had exposed the private data of up to 500,000 Google Plus users, potentially for 3 years. Google knew. Internal documents showed that leadership had specifically discussed not disclosing it because they were afraid. They made a calculated decision. Stay quiet. Hope no one finds out. A journalist found out. Now here is the data point that connects all of this into a single number that defines how the market values Google's trustworthiness. Enterprise AI subscriptions 2026. Anthropic 34%, OpenAI 32%, Google 4.5%. Google, the company that invented the foundational technology of modern AI, holds 4.5%. A company founded in 2021 is beating them. What happens when we build our entire AI workflow on Google's platform and in 18 months they shut it down? 300 kill products, 1 data cover-up, 60 days notice to Stadia users. That pattern has a price tag, and the market is now presenting the invoice. The Google graveyard isn't a list of failures. It is the most expensive trust deficit in the history of enterprise software. I want to show you the slow motion earthquake that is reshaping Google's future more than any lawsuit, any AI race, or any DOJ ruling. It doesn't show up dramatically in quarterly earnings. There's no single announcement, no press conference. It shows up in a question that a generation of people never thinks to ask. When did you last Google something? Ask anyone under 25. Watch what they actually do, and you will see the shift. They don't Google it, they TikTok it, they ask ChatGPT, they search Instagram. The word Google as a verb is generational, and the generation that made it a verb is aging out. Here are the numbers, and some of them came directly from Google's own internal research, which makes them more devastating. A Google executive admitted in 2022 that nearly 40% of young people don't open Google Maps or search when looking for a place to eat. They open TikTok or Instagram. By 2024, 64% of Gen Z consumers reported using TikTok as a search engine. Now, before anyone says, but Google still has 90% market share, let me explain why that number is both true and deeply misleading. Google's global search market share fell below 90% for 3 consecutive months at the end of 2024. Gartner projects traditional search volume will decline approximately 25% by 2026 as AI chatbots capture attention. But the deeper problem isn't the market share number. The deeper problem is what is being lost. When a 22-year-old searches best coffee shop on Google, they get SEO optimized text links from aggregators. When they search on TikTok, they get a 60-second video of a real human walking through the actual shop, showing the space, giving a real-time reaction. The format is more trustworthy, the information is richer, the experience is more human. So here is the precise nature of the threat. Google is not going to lose users overnight. It's not going to be a collapse. It is going to be a slow withdrawal of the generation that should have been Google's users for the next 40 years. The people who are 18 today will be 48 in 2052, and they are forming their habits right now. Not with Google. The god of the internet has a succession problem. The successor hasn't been crowned yet, but the throne is visibly emptying. Here is what I want you to understand about Google that almost nobody fully grasps. Google is not one company facing one threat. Google is a collection of 5 or 6 completely separate businesses, some of which are struggling and some of which will shape the next 30 years of human civilization. Let me show you the ones the financial press keeps undervaluing. YouTube, the asset hiding in plain sight. Not the platform you already know. The company YouTube has quietly become. Nielsen has named YouTube the #1 streaming service in America by total watch time for over 2 consecutive years. Not Netflix, not Disney Plus, not Amazon Prime, YouTube. In December 2025, 1 in every 8 hours of television watching in America was spent on YouTube. Netflix and Disney Plus combined could not match it. People are watching YouTube on their televisions. That is the critical shift. The platform that started as viral videos on a laptop has become the dominant experience. YouTube CEO Neil Mohan said it directly. YouTube is the new television. The numbers support it. Over 1 billion hours of YouTube content are watched on televisions every single day globally. YouTube 2025 revenue, roughly $45 to $60 billion. Netflix 2025 revenue, roughly $46 billion. YouTube watch time, 835 billion hours in the first half of 2025. Netflix, 95 billion, a 9-to-1 ratio. For the first time in 2025, Netflix and YouTube competed dollar for dollar in total video revenue, a platform built entirely on user-generated content. free to users, powered by creators, funded by ads. Went head to head with the most celebrated subscription company on earth and won on watch time by nearly 9 to 1. Waymo, the bet nobody prices correctly. While the world debates whether self-driving cars actually work, Waymo is operating them commercially in multiple American cities right now. Waymo 2026, 500,000 weekly rides, no safety driver, real paying passengers, $16 billion funding round, valuation approaching $45 billion, operating autonomously since 2009. But the number that matters isn't the valuation, it is the moat. Waymo has been driving in real cities, in real weather, encountering real edge cases since 2009. That is 15 plus years of data. You cannot replicate that. You cannot buy it. You cannot rush it. You can only earn it by driving 1 mile at a time. In a world where robotaxis become the dominant form of urban transport and the market reaches $2 trillion by 2040, Waymo's head start could ultimately be worth more than Google search. Most people haven't thought about Waymo for more than 5 minutes. That is a mistake. AlphaFold and Isomorphic Labs, the $2.5 trillion bet. And then there is the bet that has almost zero coverage outside scientific journals, but which may be the most consequential thing. In 2020, DeepMind solved a problem that had stumped biologists for 50 years: how proteins fold. A protein's shape determines what it does in the human body. Understanding the shape tells you how a drug could interact with it. It is the foundational question behind every single medicine ever created. Mapping it used to require years. AlphaFold can do it in seconds. 200 million proteins mapped and released publicly free. The entire known protein universe to every scientist on Earth. And then Google spun out a company called Isomorphic Labs, built on AlphaFold with one explicit mission: use AI to design new drugs. The global pharmaceutical industry spends $2.5 trillion a year on R&D. The average drug takes 12 years and $2 billion to bring to market. AlphaFold powered discovery has the potential to compress that 12-year timeline to 2 or 3 years. If Isomorphic Labs captures even a fraction of that value, we are talking about a total market that makes Google search look small. That is not hyperbole. That is basic math on a $2.5 trillion industry. Let me give you the complete picture, not the optimistic version. This is the grounded reality, not the pessimistic version, just the honest facts. The honest one. Google's core problem. It's not technology, it's trust. They built a monopoly on trust and then spent a decade eroding it. The god of the internet is dying, a slow withdrawal of trust. Failure 1. The trust deficit. The Andy Rubin cover-up, $90 million on the way out. Project Dragonfly, building a great firewall for China. The location tracking settlement, tracking you even when it is off. The Google Plus data burial, 500,000 users exposed. Together, these form a pattern of choosing short-term protection over long-term credibility. The fix is structural. It is not just policy. Mandatory third-party data audits, multi-year enterprise contracts with real teeth, with financial penalties for product abandonment. That is the invoice, and a product culture that rewards maintenance. Failure 2. The publisher doom loop. AI overviews are cannibalizing publisher traffic at an alarming rate. Publishers losing revenue means less content. Less content means a degraded index. The loop repeats. A degraded index means a worse search engine. Google needs to build a licensing framework for publisher content. The current model is legally fragile, ethically indefensible, and strategically self-destructive. Failure 3. The innovator's dilemma. Every major product decision is filtered through one question. Does this protect ad revenue? That is the trap. That question has a terminal shelf life. Companies must cannibalize themselves before the market does. Google invented the tech that will make search obsolete. The only question is whether they deploy it or wait again. But the company that promised to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and then deleted that promise will have become exactly what its founders said they never would. A company that chose profit over principle at any cost. and then wondered why nobody trusted them anymore. Final reckoning. I want to leave you with one question. Google has $127 billion in cash, the world's best AI researchers, the deepest infrastructure advantage in the industry, the original blueprint for every AI system running today, and a 4.5% enterprise AI market share. A total failure to launch. Kodak invented digital photography, a $1 billion mistake. Blockbuster had the capital to buy Netflix for $50 million and passed. They missed the future. Nokia owned 40% of the global mobile market. Resources don't save you when your users stop believing you. Does Google earn back the trust it burned? Or does something else take the throne? Comment below. Best answer gets pinned. Drop your answer in the comments. The most insightful one gets pinned. Now, one more question. We just spent over an hour exposing how a company that was handed every single advantage, talent, data, and capital, squandered the credibility that made all of it worthwhile. A legacy lost. What would you say about a company with even more concentrated power? A founder who holds a special class of shares giving him 10 times the voting power of every other investor, who answers legally, structurally to nobody but himself, who burned $40 billion building a virtual world that almost nobody wanted, and who is now making an AI bet so ruthless and so aggressive that even his most serious competitors admit he might be right. Next on Strategy Lens, we go inside Meta, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, the metaverse that failed, the year of efficiency that cut 21,000 jobs, a ruthless pivot, and the AI strategy that might be the smartest or most desperate pivot Silicon Valley has ever seen. Mark Zuckerberg didn't just survive being the most hated CEO in America. He turned it into a competitive advantage. We'll find out if it lasts. Subscribe now. Subscribe because you will not want to miss what he did next.